The clinking of silverware and the low hum of conversations filled the elegant dining hall of the Rosewood Grand Hotel. It was the kind of place where chandeliers dripped with light, marble floors echoed with quiet dignity, and the air carried the faint scent of roses imported from France. On an ordinary night, the guests were used to seeing politicians, wealthy businessmen, and celebrities enjoying their meals here. But on this evening, the most striking figure in the room wasn't a young model or a movie star. It was an elderly woman with silver hair swept into a neat bun, draped in a midnight blue gown that shimmered under the lights. Everyone knew her name, Eleanor Whitmore, the billionaire widow whose story of surviving tragedy and building an empire was spoken of almost like folklore. Eleanor was respected, admired, and even feared in business circles. Yet behind the sharp eyes that had once closed billion-dollar deals and the poised smile that rarely faltered, there was a heart carrying decades of scars. That night, as she sat at her reserved table, she seemed to the outside world like a queen surveying her kingdom. No one could have predicted that in the next hour, this powerful woman would be reduced to tears over something as simple as a waitress's necklace. The waitress was Emily Carter, a 23-year-old working 2 shifts a day just to make ends meet. Her uniform wasn't perfectly ironed, her shoes had scuff marks, and her eyes carried the heaviness of someone who had seen too many unpaid bills pile up on the kitchen counter. But despite all of this, Emily had a warmth that radiated in the way she spoke to guests. She smiled as though she believed kindness might be the one thing she could afford to give in abundance. That night, as Emily leaned slightly toward Eleanor's table to pour her a glass of water, the billionaire's sharp eyes caught something glimmering against the young woman's chest. A necklace. Simple. Silver. With a locket dangling at the center. Eleanor's hand froze midair, her heart slamming against her ribs. Her breath caught. For a moment, the grand hall around her faded, and she was transported decades back, to a different time, a different version of herself. Where did you get that necklace? Eleanor's voice trembled, surprising even herself. Emily blinked, startled. Oh, this? It was my mother's, she stammered. She passed away when I was little. I've worn it every day since. It's all I have left of her. The billionaire's fork clattered against her plate. Her lips quivered as she whispered, that necklace, it belonged to my daughter. The room fell silent. Guests glanced over curiously, whispering under their breath. Emily's eyes widened in shock. She had no idea who Eleanor truly was beyond a wealthy customer, but the weight of those words sank into her like a stone in water. She gripped the necklace instinctively, as if afraid it might be taken from her. Tears filled Eleanor's eyes. She hadn't cried in years, not since the day she buried her daughter, Claire. Claire had run away from home in her teenage years after a painful argument, one that Eleanor had never forgiven herself for. She had searched for her endlessly, but Claire wanted nothing to do with her mother's fortune or empire. All Eleanor had been left with was guilt and silence. Claire eventually built her own life in anonymity, cut off from the billionaire world, raising a daughter without Eleanor's knowledge. And now, standing right in front of Eleanor, was that daughter. Her granddaughter. Eleanor's body shook as she whispered, "What was your mother's name?" Emily's voice was soft. Claire. Claire Carter. The billionaire broke down completely, covering her face with trembling hands. Gasps rippled across the dining hall as whispers turned into stunned silence. The powerful Eleanor Whitmore, known for her iron will and untouchable presence, was openly sobbing. But for the first time in decades, her tears weren't for business losses, broken partnerships, or scandalous headlines. They were for a daughter she had lost, and a granddaughter she never knew existed. Emily's confusion turned into realization. Her hands trembled as she stepped back, overwhelmed. This stranger, this woman in pearls and diamonds, was her grandmother. The silence was unbearable, and finally, Emily whispered, why didn't you ever come for us?" For her? And there it was. The question Eleanor had been silently asking herself for years. From that night on, their story unfolded in layers of pain, misunderstanding, reconciliation, and healing. Eleanor learned of Claire's quiet struggles, how she had refused to seek out her wealthy mother, choosing instead to live a modest life. Emily revealed her hardships, working 2 jobs, taking night classes, and holding onto her mother's memory with nothing but a necklace and faded photographs. The necklace became the bridge between two worlds, one of unimaginable wealth and one of survival through sheer grit. But reconciliation was not easy. Emily carried resentment, the kind born from years of watching her mother cry alone, knowing there was family somewhere who could have helped but never did. Eleanor carried guilt, suffocating guilt that she might never fully wash away. They clashed. They argued. There were days Emily refused Eleanor's calls. There were nights Eleanor sat awake in her mansion, surrounded by wealth yet feeling like the poorest soul alive. And yet, something stronger pulled them together. It was not money. It was not pity. It was love, the fragile, stubborn love that existed between bloodlines even after decades of silence. Slowly, Emily began to see Eleanor not as a billionaire, not as the woman who wasn't there, but as a grandmother desperately trying to make amends. Eleanor, on the other hand, began to learn humility, to understand that money could never buy forgiveness but sincerity could open the door to it. Months later, Emily walked across the stage of her community college graduation wearing the same silver necklace. This time, in the front row, Eleanor stood proudly, clapping through tears, her voice cracking as she whispered, "That's my granddaughter." The story didn't end in riches showered or castles gifted. It ended in something far more valuable, two women learning to forgive the past, embrace the present, and rebuild the family both thought was lost forever. And that is the message, dear friends. Sometimes, what seems broken beyond repair can be healed in the most unexpected places, like a restaurant dining hall, where a necklace revealed a bond no one could sever. Family, forgiveness, and kindness, these are treasures far greater than any fortune. Backhand index pointing right. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you believe forgiveness can truly heal old wounds? Share your feelings in the comments below. I read every single one of them. Folded hands. And if you enjoy emotional, inspiring stories like this, please support my channel. Be kind always by hitting that subscribe button, liking this video, and sharing it with someone who needs a little hope today. Remember, kindness has the power to change lives.